Hey, everybody. Welcome to Missing Links with John, Brock, and myself, Stephen King, where we discuss what's missing in Web3 architecture. For feedback, please go to missinglinks.fm, send us an email, give us some feedback on what we discuss and what you'd like us to cover next week. All right, let's get into it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Missing Links with Brock, Asaurus, and myself. John is still in Italy. Brachiosaurus, how you doing?
Doing well.
Hey, buddy, just for you.
There you go.
See
I
that
appreciate
dinosaur?
it. Yeah. Named
For
it after me.
those that are listening, I'm wearing a Brachiosaurus t-shirt with dinosaurs on it. So it's going to be a good episode. All right. So Brock just launched a pretty cool project called Hot Dog Time Machine, and it's been fun to watch, and it's actually really well done. You can explain, basically you said it kind of was a side thing that you guys were going to do in a weekend, and it turned into a little bit more than that, but I think it turned out awesome. And so thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about sort of how you put that together and some of the tools and whatever other direction you want to take this.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let's just start from the beginning. How did you guys come up with this?
Oh man. So I was at 20 Base at the time. A few buddies of mine were all like burned out, and so the joke was we were all going to quit our jobs and sell hot dogs. So I was going to be the NFT project that was going to make us millions. Yeah, that was the running joke. That's still like what I claim. Obviously not going to happen, but yeah, it was fun.
Well, don't never say never.
Yeah, so we're just trying to do something with NFTs.
Cool.
Yeah.
So all right. So you guys come up with this idea and around NFTs. So let's talk about developer tools. If somebody wants to launch an NFT project and they are even I don't know, can you be a Web2 developer and uh, easily or somewhat easily get into doing something like you did?
Yeah, like if you're already a developer, Solidity's quick to pick up, especially if you're familiar with JavaScript. It's not too crazy different. And then there are tons of examples out there, tons of great libraries by teams like OpenZeppelin. So yeah, getting started in the space is definitely doable.
And what did you use? You use Solidity, and you're basically writing ERC 721 contracts.
Yeah, so I wrote the contract in Solidity, and what you can do is you can extend another library or import libraries. So OpenZeppelin has an ERC 721 token, uh, like contract that you can extend, and then another team has what was known as ERC 721A. So it's just an extension, but slightly more gas optimized. So we built off of that.
So so basically you can just take a boilerplate contract from something like OpenZeppelin and then tweak it, some of the parameters to fit your project. Is it one contract that is like the mother of all these child contracts, or how does that work?
Yeah. So for simple projects like our NFT project, it ends up being just one contract. And so when you're importing these other contracts from OpenZeppelin, whoever, what you're really doing is embedding their code into yours. So their code becomes part of your deploy contract, and it's all one thing, one deployment on chain. But basically, they define classes, so these like objects with different functions, and you can use all of those natively within what you're writing without having to implement them yourselves. So, for instance, the ERC 721 includes all of the functionality for minting a token, transferring a token, logging like who owns what, transferring them. They have like the token URI parameters for fetching metadata. All that's like baked in, so you get basically the whole thing out of the box.
So if you have 1,000 of these dogs that you're going to sell, so let's say a guy like me is going to buy one of these dogs, right? So when I go and you guys do the launch and I'm using MetaMask, I'm calling the contract. I'm calling one contract. So it's not like you're deploying another ERC 721 that's my specific hot dog.
Right.
It's kind of a derivative out of this. It's making a note in the mother contract, let's call it,
Yep.
that, hey, this address owns this dog.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, so it's in Solidity, it's a mapping structure, and so you can map from address to like token ID. And you can start or reverse token ID to address, and so you can map like who owns what token, and then you can also define, okay, this token maps to this URL where you can go fetch the metadata and the image. It's more involved than that, but that's like the really simple version.
See, that's news to me. I always thought that every NFT, whether it be a hot dog or a punk, was its own NFT. I mean, its own smart contract, ERC 721. But I guess what you're saying makes a lot more sense. What would I need my own contract for if I'm just a buyer, right? I'm using
Right.
MetaMask. You don't need to deploy a contract just for me.
Yeah, it's more so a contract per collection or per project, typically.
Okay. And then are you writing this in something like Truffle
Yeah.
or like how do you put this together?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was, like we were longtime users of Truffle JS at Imbrex, which was like this suite of developer tooling to run your contracts. You can test them. You can do all this locally. It'll spin up like a local blockchain with Ganache. Present day, Truffle's still a thing, but everybody seems to be moving over to something else called Hardhat. It's kind of like the new kid on the block. So that's what I use for this project.
Do you like it better?
I don't know. I don't feel like I've gone deep enough on either of them to have a strong opinion. Hardhat just had a lot of. It has a bigger ecosystem right now. I feel like of new tools being built, and so they're modernizing the developer stack to like one line deployments from your terminal, like onto the blockchain. They've kind of figured out some tooling like that that I haven't seen with Truffle directly.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna remind me to ask. I want to find out if it was stressful to launch this, just because when you're launching any kind of asset on chain, when I've launched anything of an asset on chain,
Yeah.
I've gotten heartburn to the maximum degree for days on end. So um, maybe, but I'll come back to that because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Where does the dog itself live? Did you point it to IPFS?
Yep. So hosted it all through IPFS, and then used Pinata, our old friends, to pin it. So paying them to have like a dedicated gateway and their pinning service to make sure that the content stays active.
Pinata, I think is going to do an airdrop. I don't know what their token's going to be for, but
Oh,
I saw something on Twitter, and it's crazy though. It's crazy that these are all their own projects, right? Like Push, nothing against Push, but to raise $10 million as a push service when that's something that you spun up in like I don't know a couple hours, and I'm sure theirs is more advanced now. But I'm just saying that like Web 2, these tools aren't big, massive projects, right? They're kind of just tools that exist. They're not protocols per se. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
um, I think part of what we're like as an ecosystem trying to find in Web3 is how those sorts of like services like notifications translate. Um, and part of the reason for figuring that out is within Web3, especially in the blockchain space, we're all agreeing to a certain data standard already by using the blockchain. So everybody's operating in a like, similar manner. And so there's the opportunity, at least, to define these protocols so that everybody's speaking and using the same languages. It's kind of the like you send text messages with SMS typically. It's like that was like an early stage protocol way back when. And now you can have different phone providers, different cell service providers that all leverage that. So I think companies like Push are looking to build that protocol, but they're also aware that the like landscape's so small they have to build the whole thing from protocol to product.
Okay. Well, I guess I meant more so like Pinata, right? It's a pinning service. Why doesn't IPFS just do Pinata? Push might be that might be like a bigger technical lift than I'm aware of. I told you, back in the early 2000s I had this idea of like, an advertisement during that little when you send a text message, the envelope flew for 7
Yep.
seconds and just like plugging in like a J&J bottle, but it didn't that technology is not that sophisticated when it comes to cellular networks, but
Yeah.
I imagine, I guess it could, it doesn't need to be its own company, but in Web3, it sounds like it might be a lot more complex than that.
I think we're just aware that the potential for Web3 is at least internet scale, and so everybody's trying to think in these much bigger terms from the beginning.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Nothing against pusher pinata.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know the technical acumen that's required for these kinds of things, and so it's yeah. Go
It's
ahead.
similar to like us, like theoretically Ethereum to run their own indexers. It's just not what they're in the business of. Like they're focused on building the foundational pieces and letting the ecosystem build the tooling around it. So I think that's kind of the like IPFS pinata separation.
Okay, I actually like that because then the product should be that much better if you have individual entities
Yeah.
creating each one. So that's a good analogy. Okay, cool. So you're using Pinata, and Pinata is pinning. So pinning what? Pinning the IPFS hash?
Yep. So there's 3,000 hot dogs, and that means 3,000 images and 3,000 metadata JSON blobs. So 6,000 files out there on IPFS that Pinata's keeping track of for us.
Okay, cool. So you got the ERC 721, and you've got 3,000 dogs. So let's say you've got 3,000 addresses. I know people could buy multiple ones, but just for the sake of simplicity, the actual JPEGs are stored on IPFS. Pinata pins the hash so that you can basically pull the image when you need to from IPFS. So it's sort of Google Maps, giving us some direction, and then the user can populate that dog, and then if you want to sell it, then you just go to an exchange, and then the contract is basically just swapping addresses.
More or less, yeah. Yep. That's where if you've ever gone to an exchange and sold an NFT, you have to tell the ERC 721 contract that you approve the exchange to move the asset on your behalf. So it's that like scary pop-up where MetaMask is like, you're allowing this other entity to have full control over your like NFT tokens in this collection.
Yeah, that's some of us have learned the hard way that doesn't always work out well.
Yeah. Yes.
Always check the contract address, which is really not. It's not fun to do that.
No.
Is it so? What's a checksum? Just real quick. I'm not. This doesn't get us off topic too much, but what is that doing?
Roughly a checksum is like a way to hash a value or normalize a value. And so quite literally, it's like a sum of bits that you can check against.
Okay,
So
and
for like
I know
wallet
that's used.
addresses, you can write them all lowercase, but the checksum version is some letters are lowercase and uppercase. And so it's like if you were to validate a lowercase address, it would have to be able to be converted to a checksum. So like I've seen a couple addresses that are not even valid once you do that.
Okay, and could that prevent? Yeah, it's checking. Is it checking the contract, or is it just checking the address? Like, is it if the exchange part that we were just talking about, is that relevant at all to a checksum or no?
Not really. Like the checksum is really just validating like, is this address actually a valid address?
Okay, cool.
Not in the sense of not verifying the project behind it or anything like that.
Got it. All right. So awesome. So that's all you need basically is some kind of an IDE, right? Like some kind of a developer environment. You're using Hard Hat. I'm going to check that out. Um, and then you're using Open Zeppelin. Do you think guys like Open Zeppelin will eventually? Well, they're open source, but you can see a world, right, where they have all these contracts, but they charge a royalty. I mean, they could make a heck of a business out of doing something like that. No.
Yeah, I mean, well, so it's interesting. Open Zeppelin, we were talking to them at DevCon. They're moving into the like threat modeling security space on chain, which is really interesting. But there are tools like Coinbase NFT. They just launched a way for artists to deploy their own NFTs without having to write code. Or you can write code, but they have the contract templates that you can use. and it's like part of that service, which is interesting.
Is Coinbase taking like a one fee for that, or are they doing a royalty?
I don't know offhand. My impression is that they are like the tool's free with the hope that you list on Coinbase, and then Coinbase can take a royalty of the sales after the fact.
Okay. Did you write the royalty into the contract? So for those that don't know, there's an ERC something that is got this royalty standard language in it, but I don't think people have been using that, which is crazy. But did you guys put it anything like that?
We did not, because frankly, most exchanges don't even check it. So you have to go to the exchange and add it manually, regardless.
Okay. So how does that work though? If people keep selling these things, it's just like a trust system, or how do you get paid a royalty?
For royalty, yeah, kind of. Yeah. So, like for us, when we launched, we couldn't claim ownership of our own collection on OpenSea. And so, like, while the whitelist minting was happening, if there had been any sales, which I think there was like, I don't know, a couple, we couldn't collect any royalties because we couldn't actually set them on OpenSea. So we had to like go through their support and get them to like verify that yes, the contract address that we're logging in with deployed the contract, therefore we're the owners. It was like it took like 5 hours to get resolved. But yeah, in that time you're not collecting anything.
I wonder if there's like some kind of like a reverse Ponzi you could run where you could basically put like $1 million into an NFT contract, and basically like let's say it's a dinosaur and I have this dinosaur and I get paid $5 if I sell this dinosaur out of the contract. And then so I sell it to you, but you get paid $10 if you sell it like it, but you can't use the same address. If you could somehow like so basically this thing becomes more and more valuable as
Oh,
you go, and when
interesting.
people are like getting paid
Yes.
for shilling it, right? But like you don't want somebody just passing it back and forth to
Yeah.
themselves, so you'd have to work out some kind of a mechanism there. But you get to the end and you're paying people a
Fascinating.
lot of money, and this thing's worth a lot. I don't know. It, that would be kind of a.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't think that the economics really pan out unless you're in that first cohort of selling back and forth. Because when you're at the million, right? You just got paid the million. You're the last person. You need to keep refilling that contract somehow um, to make it sustainable and to keep it. Anyway,
That's
not
fascinating.
trying to get
Yeah.
sidetracked, but um,
Yeah. That'd be cool.
cool, man. Well, this has been helpful. This has been so. It sounds like most people aren't just creating. Open Zeppelin is using the standards from the ERC, from the Ethereum Foundation. They've got these really buttoned up contracts. And since they're standard, yeah, you could go write your own contract. You could even deploy it, right? Because anybody can deploy a contract to Ethereum. It's not gated in any way. But most people, they are probably trying to not lose money or anything like that. They just want convenience. Is that why they use like Open Zeppelin or things like that?
Convenience and security, I'd say. So, like when we were writing the Inbrets contracts, I believe we even had Open Zeppelin audit them. A lot of like NFT projects now, if you're using these standards, they often don't get audited because, yeah, you're kind of assuming that they've already been because so many other people are using them.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I'm excited to see how NFTs do in the real world. I think I think JPEGs are great, but I think it seems like there's things being built now. Music, I keep seeing that like actual things happening. You know, there was a bunch of music use cases that came out in 2017 or 2018, like Jax and things like that. But it was too early. But now it seems like it's actually maybe in the next bull market that could be a theme. Gaming obviously is definitely going to be a theme. Um, I don't know if real assets will be. Do you think in the next bull market?
I don't know when, but at some point, like there's enough momentum there, and it's too obvious of a thing. I think like it'll get adoption one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how long. I guess that'll all depend on regulation.
That would help. Yeah, if there's any rules.
Yeah. The regulatory front is a mess. And, I don't know, man. I assume at some point, we'll get somebody that is pro crypto and I don't know. I feel like it's gonna. What's happening with like GPT-3? The way that it's just making like AI was this thing you heard about for so long, and then it is unbelievable. I'm like blown away by this stuff, and it just happened like overnight, and that's probably just because I'm paying attention to it now. But also because they opened it up, you had to be on like a beta list.
Yeah. Or like Dolly and everything. Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to be the case for crypto. It's like normies are, they're not really, yeah, they're probably buying a little bit of crypto as a hedge. But then one day we're just going to wake up after whatever gets passed and swiping our credit card, and it's going to be pulling crypto, and it's just going to be a thing.
Yeah. Just a matter of time.
Cool. And we'll index all that data. So the indexing company will do it all.
Exactly.
All right, Brachiosaurus, we'll wrap it there. Thank you for joining on a Saturday night. This has been helpful for me, and I'm sure to many others.